The pandemic hitting all communities hard, but those without homes in Tulsa facing more obstacles now.
Yeah, social distancing is forcing shelters to limit already limited capacity. And lack of access to testing can mean Tulsa's homeless don't know if they're actually spreading the virus or not. And if they were to get it, healthcare often out of reach for that community.
Well, 2 Works for You is digging deeper today. This morning, only on 2 Works for You today, we welcome to the show Becky Gligo, the Housing Policy Director for the City of Tulsa. And Becky, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So obviously, as we mentioned, COVID-19 has had an impact on every single community. But my question to you is, how has COVID-19 complicated all of the complex issues surrounding homelessness, also social distancing?
Absolutely. So I think you take a population that's already really highly vulnerable, and now we've taken away a lot of their resources. And so people experiencing homelessness have been used to going to the shelters, going to the library, going to the Denver house, and those things have either closed entirely or significantly reduced their capacity in order to prevent community spread of the virus. And that's been really difficult for folks.
And something that a lot of people have wondered, are these homeless folks able to get tested for infection? And if they do test positive, what happens then?
It's a great question. So we've been incredibly fortunate in that Morton Comprehensive Health Services has been able to secure universal testing for anybody that wants it that's experiencing homelessness. And so they're doing a regular rotation through our shelters so that folks can get tested. And then if they do test positive, we have set up a quarantine hotel so that people can recover in dignity. What's been exceptional, I think, for our community is that our rates of coronavirus within the homeless community have been relatively low and manageable with the resources that we've set up.
And it is wonderful that they are able to get that help. Also, is the mask thing still what you guys are dealing with, handing out masks to those people in the homeless community as well?
Folks can still do a free mask exchange. They can pick up cloth masks and drop them off to be laundered so that they have a clean mask, yes.
Okay. And we've been following a story that was first reported in the Tulsa World, and it was about a clear out of a homeless camp over there on Archer Street, just north of downtown. And that was supposed to happen yesterday, but it was rescheduled due to some contracting issues. And you told the Tulsa World that you're against criminalizing poverty, yet Tulsa police expected to hand out some citations to people who don't clear out. So what do you make of that?
So that's actually not the case. I know that that was originally what was reported, but Tulsa Police Department has actually been partnering to really just let people know that there's a cleanup coming. And it's really more of a 311 response to the corridor. And so what we've been working around the clock to do in partnership with multiple agencies is to set up an overflow shelter so that folks have a place to go, because living out on the street where folks are highly vulnerable to criminal acts perpetrated against them, where they're out in the elements is not, a dignified way for our neighboring Tulsans to live. And so we've all been partnering together, and folks won't be cited and folks won't be moved until the juvenile detention center that is now functioning as a shelter is fully open and people have another option.
Oh, thank you for clearing that up. And you were touching on shelters. So what housing options are there as far as space in shelters, those transitional housing facilities, long-term housing for singles, adults, women, children, and families?
It's a good question. So, the shelters still are functioning. They're just functioning at a lower physical capacity. What I'm really proud of is that Away Home for Tulsa has actually housed or made over 350 housing placements since March, which is more than all of 2019 put together. And so what we see is there are private market landlords that are willing to house individuals experiencing homelessness. And then we have what's called permanent supportive housing, which is really housing with pretty intensive wraparound services attached to it that's operated across the city by different partners, and we're able to put folks there as well. And then the Tulsa Housing Authority has, they applied for a waiver with HUD that allowed us to place a lot of individuals in Tulsa Housing Authority housing. And so we've had great success with finding housing for people experiencing homelessness, which is so important because the only cure for homelessness is housing. That's always our ultimate goal.
All right. Well, Becky Gligo, the Housing Policy Director for the City of Tulsa, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your insight. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.